Assalamualaikum and a pleasant day to each and everyone. So this is the continuation of designing meaningful performance-based assessment. So I am Antam Nadra. So the content of my discussion, first, I will talk about some suggestions for constructing performance tasks, examples of process-oriented performance tasks, rubrics as an assessment tools, types of rubrics, and rating the performance. So, suggestion for constructing performance tasks. The development of high-quality performance assessment that effectively measure complex learning outcomes requires attention to task development and to the ways in which performance are rated. According to Lin 1995, suggested ways to improve the development of tasks. So one of his suggestion is number one, focus on learning outcome that require complex cognitive skills and student performance. Means tasks need to be developed or selected in the light of important learning outcomes. Second, select or develop tasks that represent both the content and the skills that are central to the important learning outcomes. Meaning, it is important to specify the range of content and resources students can use in performing tasks. So third, minimize the difference of task performance on skills that are irrelevant to the intended purpose of the task. So the K here is to focus on the attention of the assessment. So fourth, provide the necessary scaffolding for students to be able to understand the task and what is expected. Challenging tasks often involve ambiguous and require students to experiment, gather information, formulate hypotheses, and evaluate their own progress in solving a problem. So number 5, construct task directions so that the student's task is clearly indicated. So vague direction can lead to such a diverse array of performance that it's become impossible to rate them in the fair or reliable fashion. So by design, many performance-based tasks give students a substantial degree of freedom to explore, approach problem in different ways, and come up with novel solution. So last, clearly communicate performance expectation in terms of criteria by which the performance will be judged. So specifying the criteria to be used in rating performance helps clarify task expectation for a student. So let's move to the example of process-oriented performance tasks. So the problem solving and decision making performance task. So the key competences is number one, use reading skills and strategy to comprehend and interpret what is read. Demonstrate competence in speaking and listening as tool for learning. Number third, construct complex sentences. So the examples in performance tasks for product oriented performance-based assessment, which is so for the performance task example, this example where the barangay captain made he assigned each of his counselor. So one of his counselor uh, assigned to make a beverage for the guest in the 50th anniversary with the theme Kalikasan Ko Mahal Ko. So, the counselor prepared some is in charge to the preparation in making the natural beverage for the guest. So he made some plan. So he provide and he promote where he promote the locally product fruits or beverage as well as health and wellness. So so for this, the crafting task for both process and product-oriented performance-based assessment needs careful planning. Like in the example, the counselor made a plan for the preparation to the fifth anniversary. So careful planning, engagement, elaboration, and experience are some factors to consider in making authentic tasks, which make it different to traditional assessment. Tasks should also centered on the concept, principle, and issues that are important to context of the subject matter. Moreover, teacher must know what they want to observe before performance criteria can be identified. So, developing scoring theme. So, there are different useful ways to record the assessment of students' performance. Variety of tools can be used for assessment depending on the natural of performance it calls for. So, as the teacher, you need to critically examine the task to be performed matched with the assessment tools to be utilized. Some ways of assessing the student's performance could be the utilization of adic- uh, anecdo- uh, anecdotes, records, interviews, direct observation using checklist or Likert scale, and the use of rubrics, especially for the performance-based assessment. So rubrics as an assessment tools. So 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 rubrics nowadays have been widely used as a tools in various development, especially in the field of education. So different authorities define rubrics. So from Musia 2009, he defined rubrics as a set of rules specifying the criteria used to find out what the students know and are able to do so. So according to Levy 2005, he defined also rubrics as a scoring tools that lays out specific expectation for assignment. So from Macmillan 2009, rubrics is a scoring guide that uses criteria to differentiate between levels of students' proficiency. So from Brookhart 1999, descriptive scoring, he defined rubrics as descriptive scoring schemes that are developed by teacher or evaluator to guide the analysis of product or processes of students' effort. So, from last Popham 2011, he defined the rubrics as the scoring procedures for judging students' responses to performance tests. So, rubrics as a tools. Rubrics that use to score students' response to performance assessment has at minimum three important features. First, evaluative criteria. These are the factors to be used in determining the quality of three students' response. Descriptions of qualitative differences for evaluating criteria. Each evaluative criterion, a description must be supplied so qualitative distinctions in students' responses can made using the criterion. So, an indication indication of whether a holistic or analytic scoring approach is to be used. The rubrics must indicate whether the evaluative criteria are to be applied collectively in a form of holistic scoring or on a criterion by criterion basis in the form of analytic scoring. So, rubrics. So, rubrics defined as a typical an evaluation tools or set of guidelines used to promote the consistent application of learning expectation, learning objectives, or learning standards in the classroom, or to measure their attainment against a consistent set of criteria. Aside from the definition, rubrics are used also to communicate how teachers evaluate the essence of what is being assessed. And also, rubrics are not only improve scoring consistency, they also improve validity by clarifying the standard of achievement the teacher will use in evaluating. So, in the development and scoring of rubrics, according to NITCO 2011, suggested some questions which the teacher should address. First, what important criteria and learning targets do I need to assess? Second, what are the levels of development or achievement for each of these criteria and learning targets? Should I use a holistic or an analytic and scoring rubrics? Do I need to use a rating scale or a checklist as my scoring scheme? Should my student be involved in rating their own performance? How can I make my scoring efficient and less time consuming? What do I need to record as a result of my assessment? What are some useful methods of recording students' responses to performance tasks? So there's a types of rubrics, analytic rubrics, the first types of rubrics. So analytic rubrics, it requires the teacher to list and identify the major knowledge and skill which are critical in the development of process of or product task. So analytic rubrics also is defined it's defined to allow teacher to assess participants' achievement based on multiple criteria using a single rubrics. You can assign different weight value to the different criteria and include an overall achievement by totaling the criteria, rating in the table form. So the holistic rubrics, it requires the teacher to make judgment about the overall quality of each student response. Aside from the given definition, holistic rubrics also uh, allow you or a teacher to assess students' overall performance on an activity or assessment based on a single scale using predefined achievement level. With the holistic rubrics, the instructor assigned a single score, usually an example on a 1 to 4 point scale based on the judgment of the student's overall work. So that the difference between of these rubrics, the holistic rubrics may use a percentage or text-only scoring method, while the analytic rubrics, it is a two-dimensional rubrics which level of achievement as columns and assessment criteria as arrows. As rows, it is allow you to assess participant achievement based on multiple criteria using holistic rubrics. So, rubrics development. According to Stevens and Lewis, Introductions to Rubrics 2005, they enumerated the steps in developing rubrics. Basically, rubrics are composed of task description, scale, description of dimension. First, task description involves involves the performance of the student. So tasks can be taken from the assignment, presentation, and other classroom activity. Usually, task description are being set in defining performance tasks. So next, scale. Scale describe how well or poorly any given task has been performed and determine to what degree the students has met a certain criterion generally. It is used to describe the level of performance. So, scale, no, description of dimension. So, the description of dimension. Dimension should contain description of level of performance as standard of excellence accompanied with examples. This allows both the teacher and the student to identify the level of expectation and what dimension must be given and emphasizes. So, rating the performance. So, this is the final step in performance-based assessment, determining the learning outcome of the student. The main objective of rating the performance is to be objective and consistent. Be sure also that scoring system is feasible as well in most of the classroom situation. The teacher is both the observer and the rater. If there are some important instructional decision to be made, additional rater must be considered in order to make score more fair. So, since the performance-based assessment involved professional since the performance-based assessment involves professional judgment, some common errors in rating should be avoided. First, personal bias and halo effect. So, according to Macmillan 2007, he stated that personal bias result in three kinds of error. First, generosity error, which defined as it occur when the teacher tend to give higher scores. Second, severity error, it result when the teacher used the low end of the scale and underrate students' performance. And the next is the central tendency error, in which the students are rated in the middle. On the other hand, the halo effect occurs when the teacher generally impressions of the students affect score giving on the individual traits or performance. Students, on the other hand, can assess their own progress. Students' participation need not to be limited to the use of assessment instruments. It is also useful to have students help develop the instrument. In some practices, students rate themselves and compare their ratings with the teacher in charge. With this, the teacher can elaborate and explain to each student the reason for rating and discuss the gap between the rating, most especially in the individual conference. So, So that's all. Thank you.